Alright guys, this is Tom Wait with me with some recap on the newest expansion cards. It's my own personal opinion here. I didn't watch that many other streamers before talking about the cards, and it's gonna be a really quick review so far. So this is Druid. Not that many cards revealed so far, but I have to say Druid looks pretty interesting. Druid usually gets some good cards. It's a good class, basically, with Innovate and Wild Growth anyways. But they always get interesting stuff, right? So Crypt Lord looks to me like slightly better Tar Creeper. It's very interesting, this card. It's interesting for defensive decks and for offensive decks because it's going to be so hard to kill, right? If you hide your Vicious Fledgling behind that, with Aggro Druid, that's just nuts. And you can buff the attack, right? So definitely interesting card. I'm not sure, the Tar Creeper might still be the better choice, but since you're not running Elementals, or Elemental Synergy usually in the Token Druid, this might be actually the better choice. Spreading Plague or Plague, I suppose. Looks also very interesting. That's like the counterplay, obviously, to all the token drakes. I like this a lot. So you basically get a 1/5 almost for each opponent's minion, especially if you're the control player. Looks very powerful as an anti-aggro tool. I am not sure where it's gonna see play. Maybe in Jade Druid. The problem is that Jade Druid actually has usually some minions on the board, right? So you need to make sure that you can kill your own minions before playing that card. That might not always be possible, but I think at least people are going to try this card out, and I think somewhere in the future there's going to be a deck for this one here. Especially you can also combine this one with buffs, right? And then you get a shitload of value. Ultimate Infestation is a super high value card. I have to say that I think that the difference between drawing 5 cards and 3 cards is not that crazy, because at some points you will just draw too many cards and you will burn some cards, you will discard them because you cannot draw them, and at some point you don't want to draw more cards unless it's specifically Jade Druid, right? With the Jade Idols, when you can shuffle them. So it might be the best actually for Jade Druid. As a one-off probably, because 10 mana is too expensive for running 2 copies of these. But it's a super high value card, definitely interesting. Fate Spinner. I love it that the stuff is going to put secretly, right? You never know if it's going to deal 3 damage or give all the minions +2/+2. I really love this idea, but I think the stats are crap. 5/3 for 5 mana with this stuff. I don't know. Even in Token Druid, where you buff all your other minions, that's just... it's never really going to happen, right? I don't know. I think this card is unplayable, but I really love the idea that the Chosen ability is going to be secret now. This legendary Hadronox, I don't know. That's just a weak Nadath, right? Because the problem with this one is the stats. It should be a 7/3 and not a 3/7, because what's happening onto a 9 when you play huge taunts in your Druid, you usually want this minion to die and to just re-summon all the stuff. So it's specifically like to counter a brawl or something when you're playing control against control. It's not terrible, definitely, but I don't think it will make it into any constructed deck. Okay, let's move on to the Hunter cards. Bear Shark. I really like the idea and the artwork. That's quite funny, but I don't think it's very valuable for constructed, right? It's specifically good against Mage, that's about it. There's not much other stuff targeting the 4 attack minions, right? Priest has a lot of spells to target, but they cannot target 4 attack anyway. I don't know, some shaman spells, but yeah, that's about it. Specifically good against Mage, but I still don't like it that much. I don't think it's enough for constructed, but it's probably good for the Hunter hero power, for the zombies, right? Stitched Tracker. This one could be interesting for a more value-oriented Hunter. that basically gives you a lot of Savannah Hymens, right? I think this card just doesn't fit too well into the Hunter class. You need more tempo-oriented cards in Hunter. I think this is probably too weak. Play that? No, that's just too weak. Even though it's cheap. But there's no spellcast synergy in Hunter. And the death rattles are not that crazy. It's not that good, I would say. Venom Strike Trap is also not that great. It's not terrible, right? But it's not that great. It's just meh. It's not good enough for constructed. Corpse Widow. This one is really interesting. The Corpse Widow might actually be good enough for constructed. Because 5 mana, 4/5, that's really aggressively statted, right? It might take the slot of the Nesting Rock in Midrange Hunter. And then the Death Rattle reduction is quite nice, right? You can play this on turn 5 and can play your Kindly Grandmother together with it. It also will reduce the Savannah Hymens, so if this one survives, and that's actually not that unlikely, right? If this one survives, you will be able to cast Savannah Hymen next turn and fit in an extra hero power, or an extra 2-drop if possible. So this might give you some really nice tempo swings, and it's really hard to kill. A 4/6, that's not that easy to deal with for most of the classes. That's really good. It's also Beast, so it's a great Houndmaster target. And yeah, the upside is pretty good. So I think this one is going to take the Nesting Rock spot. Probably, yeah. Not sure if Hunter is going to be strong enough, but it's worth a try. I will definitely experiment with this card. This card, I don't know, summon a random friendly beast that died this game. It's just not that impactful because you just have cheap beasts that will die always in Hunter. So, well, this basically allows you to craft a kinda sort of a beast every turn from 2 beasts. So, and deals 2 damage AoE. That's actually the best immediate effect, more or less, I've seen so far. And 2 damage AoE is really nice for Hunter, actually, because Hunter lacks AoE. So I think this is one of the best heroes we've seen so far, especially because it's also kinda aggressively priced with 6 mana. But the hero power is getting really slow. But this can be a nice way for Hunter, actually, in my opinion, for a mid-range Hunter, to replace the useless hero power in the matchups that are more value-oriented. Like when you play against Paladin and Warrior, and Priest, maybe, something like that, you might be able to get the extra value you need with this card. It's not really reliable because it's a legendary, and yeah. But still, it can work. I'm optimistic for this one. Just not very optimistic for Hunter overall. We will have to wait what the other 2 cards look like, but so far I think Hunter is still going to be a tier 3 class. But this one might push mid-range Hunter a little bit against control decks. Professor Pruchicide. I cannot pronounce that correctly, I'm afraid. But whatever. After you play a secret, put a random Hunter secret into the battlefield. So when you play your Cloaked Huntress on turn 3 and have this guy coming up on turn 4 and you play 1 secret, you actually get 2 secrets. But that's the super dream and that's not even looking that ridiculous, right? And then after all, it's just a 4 mana 5/4 and it's not even a beast, which is usually very important for Hunters. I don't think that this guy is any good. The Cold Wraith. That one is going to be very interesting. I think that's maybe even a little bit too powerful for Burn Mage, because you run Blizzards, you run Frostbolts, and usually, and maybe even Holy Nova, right? So 3 freeze effects you can actually put into your deck. Most of the time you will not actually be able to get the card draw, right? But sometimes you will, and then this card is absolutely ridiculous. So, and in the worst case, it's a 3 mana 3/4. I think this one is really, really powerful. I think this one is going to see play in Burn Mage, like, very likely. This one is going to push the the quest mage. This one is going to push the quest mage a lot because it adds a spell to your hand, and the stats are actually quite nice. So the Doomed Apprentice, no, the Doomed Apprentice is just too low statted for 3 mana. It dies to Consecration, it dies to Holy Nova, it dies to South Deckhand, it dies to, I don't know, a lot of trash. That's just not that effective. Ice Walker, your hero power also freezes the target. I don't know, but the problem is you don't want to hero power. This should have been a 2-3. I'm not sure. I mean, it's not that terrible for elemental synergy, but no, this is just too slow for a 2 mana card. Glacier Mysteries. It's basically Mysterious Challenger for Mage, but the problem is, by turn 8, like you need this one actually to get from your Primordial Glyph and then pull all the secrets out, right? On turn 6. That is ridiculous. That's the thing you want to do. And that's actually a huge buff for the Primordial Glyph, right? Let's say you're running 3 or 4 secrets in your deck, and they're still in your deck, and you play this card on turn 6. Wow, that's just nuts. That is going to make up for some really nice Trollden videos where you get a lot of secrets and you're not even running this card. But I don't think it can actually be played consistently in a constructed deck. I don't think you can play it because 8 mana is just too much. When it is at 8 mana, the secrets are not that impactful anymore, and you have drawn most of them, right? So I think people will try it out in Secret Mage, but I think they will discover that it's not actually good enough. But I might be wrong on this one. But it's 8 mana and so little immediate impact. Copy the lowest cost minion in your hand. So this one is good to get extra Sources Apprentice. So that's possibly another buff for the Quest Mage. Quite nice. Frostlich Jaina, in my opinion, is like a slower Jaraxxus, like a sustained Jaraxxus. You get a 3/6 every second turn, maybe, on average. You get a lot of healing from all the lifesteal from the water elementals, and you get 5 armor. But the hero power is really not that significantly stronger, right? And you don't get the weapon from Jaraxxus. It's just, you gain a lot of sustain with this card. It can work maybe, but it's just for a 9 mana card, it's having so little pressure on the opponent. And Mage is usually not that class that's grinding it out, right? You just play all the freeze effects and just burn them to death. So I don't see this one working. Syndragosa looks interesting, like you get 2 random legendaries, right? The Frozen Champions, when they die, they will give you random legendaries. But random legendaries is actually not that crazy, because random legendaries are usually pretty trashy cards. Obviously, new players will be like, this card is ridiculous! It will give you 3 legendaries! But hardly do they know that legendaries are actually pretty trashy. Paladin cards. Chillblade Champion. Charge, Lifesteal, 3/2 for 4 mana. The main problem is that the 4 mana spot in Paladin is so much crowded. I think this card is, in most situations, strictly weaker than True Silver Champion, and almost served the same purpose. So it's not good enough. I think if this one had Divine Shield instead of Lifesteal, maybe even, it would have been much better, because there's now so much Divine Shield synergy around for Paladin. That would have been much more interesting, but it doesn't have Divine Shield, it does have Lifesteal, and Lifesteal is not that interesting actually, I would say. And you have to remember that on the 4 mana spot, you usually want also 4 attack to deal with significant threats that have 4 attack. So this one is not really good enough, in my opinion. Righteous Defender. Righteous Defender is pretty insane, in my opinion. Righteous Defender, this small little guy here, is, in my opinion, the most impactful card I've seen so far from the new expansion. And here's why. Argent Squire is on the border of being playable in Constructed for Paladin. most decks could actually run the Archon Squire, especially with all the Divine Shield synergy that is coming in the next expansion, in the Frozen Throne expansion, right? So, and this one is a strict buff to Archon Squire, right? And it will be quite nice to have Taunt on that minion. That's really annoying, just like Annoyatron, right? So Annoyatron just is a mech and has +1 health for 1 extra mana. So this one is pretty strong. Also, yeah, just like I mentioned, with all the Divine Shield synergy that is coming. And why is it so impactful? Because it's just 1 mana. So that means you will play it almost every game. Just because it's so cheap, it always fits somewhere, right? So, yeah, that means it's a very impactful card. Maybe not as impactful as Patches, and it might not even get played in Control Paladin. But I think that the mid-range Paladins will have a very close look at this one. It depends a little bit if it is really better than a 1-drop Murloc. So this one has to compete against the Wildfin Inquisitor, right? That's a tough competitor. But I still think this is one of the most impactful cards from the set so far. Which tells a story, right? That means the other ones are not really that impactful. Howling Commander. Draw a Divine Shield minion from your deck. I think the stat line is too weak, but you can specifically get your Turian, or you can specifically get this new guy, this Bolvar here. Don't count it out, but it doesn't seem that impressive for me. Give a minion Death Rattle, revive this minion with 1 health. So that's basically redemption targeted specifically on 1 minion. It's playable on turn 10 together with Turian, but I still think it's too low impact usually to get a redemption on your minion. Light Sorrow. After a friendly minion loses Divine Shield, gain +1 attack. It's a weapon. It's a 4 mana 1/4 weapon. If you don't have any Divine Shield minions on the board, this card is going to do nothing on turn 4. This is trash. And I think it's the most common case, right? The most common case is that you actually have 0 Divine Shield minions on your board, because the opponent is usually going to remove that, right? And that's trash then. So, yeah. And even if you have, like, it's already insane if you have 2 Divine Shield minions on the board, right? And then it's just a 4 mana 3/4, which is still kinda weak because you desperately want that 4 damage on your weapon. And you're just not going to get that, in my opinion, on this weapon. So I think it is not good enough for Constructed. Bolvar Fireblood. Divine Shield. After a friendly minion loses Divine Shield, gain +2 attack. It's only friendly minions again, just like the weapon. The stats remind me a lot of Gurubashi Berserker, right? Gurubashi Berserker is a 2/7 actually, it's stronger. And whenever it's damaged, it's getting +3 attack, right? Obviously it will get 2 attack once its own Divine Shield is lost. But overall, I think this minion is trash, in my opinion. You cannot reliably push this minion to be a 5/7. That's not reliable, right? And the impact of a 5 mana 1/7 Divine Shield is very low. The only thing this card might be kinda nuts is that Spike Trick Steed is the most powerful Paladin card right out there. And this one is actually playable on turn 5 and sets up for your Spike Trick Steed. So don't count him out. I think the card itself is trash. Bolvar Fireblood is trash, but it's obviously really, really nice when followed up with a Spike Trick Steed. Alright, let's go to the priest cards. Spirit Lash. Lifesteal. Deal 1 damage to all minions. So this one is particularly interesting with spell power. You will get a lot of health and you will get a cheap removal. It's comparable to Maelstrom Portal, I would say, but it's defensive. It's good for Control Priest. So you want to run this with Blood Mage Thalnos. That's basically the only spell power card that is available for Priest, right? Or the Kobold Geomancer. I don't know. It's probably a little bit too weak, but 1 damage might be good enough. The problem is that the current token decks, all the token decks, Token Shaman, Token Druid, and even Pirate Warrior, they usually have minions that have more than 1 health, right? Most of the pirates have 3 health. Most of the other tokens have 2 health because of that stupid Firefly that is around here. So I think it's not going to push Control Priest to a new level. Shadow Ascendant. After the end of the turn, give another random friendly minion +1/+1. I don't know. That's not really that powerful in my opinion. 2 mana 2/2. And it's also not really interesting, right? Acolyte of Agony, same kinda, too weak for constructed in my opinion. Eternal Servitude, discover a friendly minion that died this game, summon it. That card is, I think, is it the most interesting priest card? Potentially, right? Or maybe it's the Obsidian statue. This card can be really nice when you want to revive stuff like the Injured Blade Master, right? If you revive Injured Blade Master, maybe in the late game you can take, I don't know, really ridiculous stuff, right? You can get your huge legendaries back from this one, an extra Ysera, Devour Mind. I think this card is not strong enough because Thought Steal doesn't see play. Embrace Darkness. Choose an enemy minion at the start of your turn, gain control of it. So it's a better... No, not a better. It's a cheaper mind control, obviously. And the opponent basically gets the chance to kill that minion on his turn, trading into one of your minions. He kills it or damages it. It is really nice for control versus control matchups, right? But against aggro, it is too slow. And Priest does have issues dealing with aggressive decks. Obsidian Statue. Taunt, Lifesteal, Death Rattle, destroy a random enemy minion. I think this card is quite powerful, especially this is a huge buff for Free from Ember. This will almost always be shown when you discover a minion for Free from Ember, right? And the 4/8 taunt is a really good stat line. We have seen that with the Primordial Drake from the last expansion. Lifesteal is going to give you some really nice boost. You obviously want to play this in your control deck. It might also work well together with Eternal Servitude. I think this card is probably, these two are the best priest cards released so far. They look very interesting, especially for control priests. Archbishop Benedictus. I don't know, shuffle a copy of your opponent's deck into your deck. This is just like a meme card, right? It's the ultimate value, but I don't know. It just doesn't work. Shadow Reaper Anduin. Destroy all minions with 5 attack or more. That's... When is that ever a real thing, right? When has the opponent... Like, it's basically one Shadow with Death included in that 8 mana card. And then you get the hero power, deal 2 damage after you play a card, refresh this. That seems so slow to me. I don't know. It's for 8 mana. It's so little impact. Obviously, over time it can be a lot of impact, but why wouldn't you play Shadow Form instead? I don't know. It looks very, very slow for me. I'm always looking at the tempo, right? I focus on tempo plays, and this one just looks like it has 0 tempo.